I know who you are,
Okay.
and we just want to let you know you're actually not welcome in the church here.
Okay.
So I'm going to escort you out, okay? So
will you
turn
please
around and
get your
go
hands
this
off
way.
me?
Well, I got involved in Scientology at the insistence of my mother because hypnosis works pretty well. All right, I mean, I got some Dianetic auditing. It seemed to work. I didn't know what worked at the time. I didn't know anything about hypnosis or suggestion. And so I attributed it to Hubbard's greatness.
So he was a small G god to you at the time, then?
Yeah, he was. I thought Hubbard was a really smart guy. I didn't know he was just very clever.
How long were you in?
I was under the influence of Scientology for about 10 years, and I was out. I got in when I was 16 or 17. Had auditing at DC, and then started doing work in there part time, like you do. My mom was the HCO ES, which is sort of like the CO now.
Commanding officer?
Yeah, but I mean, he used to be called HCO, Executive Secretary, and back in, for a brief period of time back in the late '60s, and I started working on staff at FCDC in the late '60s, on and off during summers or weekends, and then I got a job working at the top hi-fi store in Washington, D.C. Got as a bench technician, straight out of high school, with no training. I'd been building things, electronics, since I fixed our first TV when I was 11. All right, and when I got that job, the owner, Ed Meyer, said, "You know, Arnie, I like you very much, but I need a bench technician with some experience." And I said, "Mr. Meyer, hire me at minimum wage, and in 2 weeks fire me or give me a raise." That stopped him cold, and he hired me. And after 2 weeks, I yelled downstairs to the sales floor, "Oh, Mr. Meyer, am I fired?" And that was my first raise. After a year, I was service manager, making what would be about $85,000 a year at 18 years of age.
Wow.
First year out of high school.
Wow. Why did you leave?
What, working there?
No, at Scientology when you were in.
We call it the aha moment.
The aha moment was in a room, in a hotel in Clearwater, the Jack Tar Hotel, the one that's now the Fort Harrison. And it was either in the Fort Harrison or the one across the street before they tore it down to make the super duper power building. And I was in a room with two guys from the GO at the time, and I was given an offer of safe passage out of the state of Florida with all body parts still attached if I told Suzette Hubbard that the marriage was off. We had gotten blood tests and a marriage license and were planning to elope and get married. And
Is that Ron Hubbard's daughter?
yeah, the big guy's daughter.
Okay.
And we had met in. It's a real long story how we met, but it's a great story. But not now. It'll just go on forever.
Okay.
But anyhow, we had met in New York, and because of a SO1 letter I had sent.
What's an SO1 letter?
Standing Order Number 1, which says that a person, all mail addressed by me shall be read by me and answered by me, by Hubbard, if you send a letter to Hubbard. Well, Suzette was running the unit that answered all the mail, and they got a letter from me, and nobody understood what the hell I was talking about. It was a bunch of technical stuff, electronic stuff. And so they gave it to Suzette to read, and she didn't understand what the hell I was talking about. And when she ended up at this secret place when Hubbard was in the Bronx at what's called Relay Office, New York, which was just a little house in the Bronx, but she and Hubbard and Suzette were over there. I got a message that Suzette wanted me to call her with a phone number, and I went, "Suzette wants me to call her?" "Yeah." "Oh, okay." And she said she wanted to meet and talk about this letter that I'd sent. And we met, and she talked about the letter, and we both heard violins and fell madly in love.
Wow.
Yeah. But they didn't like that because I think they knew I was a troublemaker.
Right.
Could not be controlled as easily as others.
So you had quite the experience after you left Scientology.
Well, it was when you see, I have a very good memory, but I don't recall what was said to me in the room. I only recall my conclusion translating that experience in the room into, a simple deal.
Right.
And the deal was, tell her the marriage is off and you can guarantee you safe passage out of the state of Florida with all body parts still attached. It was an offer I couldn't refuse. But it woke me up. That was when I clicked out of the trance. That was when I went, my God, if they're capable of this, then maybe some of these other things might be true. What else are they capable of?
Right.
This has nothing to do with truth or facts or feelings or people. This is all about control. And that was when I woke. And I thought, I will say or do anything to get the hell out of this room. All right? And I think I signed a couple pieces of paper that day. And Earl Cooley produced a few of those during a deposition 25 years later, saying, is this your signature? I go, uh-huh. And he introduced all of these non-disclosure agreements, indemnity forms, 100,000 here, $250,000 here, 50,000 here, He introduced them all during the deposition and tried to bring them up in open court. And Federal Judge Brinkema just said.
What deposition was that for?
That was in RTC versus Lerma. That was because I decided to go to war with Scientology in 1993. After coming in for an OT repair in DC org, and they set me up with this gorgeous auditor. Oh, she was a knockout. And, it's a OT repair thing. And, I go in and I float my needle at the examiner and stuff, and then I'm at the reg, and the reg is trying to get me to sell my house. Now, you understand, after the Scientology experience, up till I left in 1977, I left the Sea Org, all I wanted was the house, the kid, the cat, and the car. I mean, I was living in the food, sex, money, and cars universe. There was nothing spiritual. You couldn't talk to me about ghosts or UFOs or anything out of this world. It was all just solid matter. And I had all of that. I had the solid stuff. But there was an emptiness. There was something missing. And then, I get a call. I think, what was that guy's name? Who's that big FSM? My friend Gary that I joined with set me up with him. I'll think of his name. We could add it at some point. But they end up getting me in for this review session at DC when there's this tour. And I get to the reg, and the reg is asking me to sell my house. And I'm thinking, I flipped. It was like, bang, I'm sitting in the room with the guys saying, all body parts still attached. And I went off I flipped out. I thought, I can't say the words on camera that I thought, but it was vernacular, and it went on for quite a while. I got very mad. I thought, it's all about money. No redeeming features. It's just about money. And I started reading the net on AOL, and then AOL opened its gateway to the internet in that, I think, September '93. And then I was looking through an internet guidebook, and it listed things called Usenet. This is back in '94. And it listed these Usenet news groups. One was Alt Religion Scientology. And it had a little descriptor next to it, and the descriptor was renegades from the Church of Scientology. And I thought, yes, that sounds good. Then there was this other news group, Alt Religion Scientology. The first one was Alt Clearing Technology. I'm sorry, Alt Clearing Technology was renegades from the Church of Scientology. And alt-religion Scientology just said, "He's dead, Jim." Like from Star Trek, you know, where the doctor will, somebody falls down and gets zapped, and he goes, "He's dead, Jim." And referring to Hubbard. Anyway, I started posting there, and I met a guy I hadn't talked to in 25 years that I knew at DC Org, Joe Harrington. And I'd looked up to Joe and thought Joe was a wonderful man, and we started talking again, and he was sort of like my guide and introduced me to some other people. And I was sort of free-zoning, you know. I sort of thought, well, you know, maybe Hubbard just went crazy in '66, you know. And then in '94, they shot Enid Veen's cat. Or Enid had gotten sued for making copies of some packs or something. And during the litigation, somebody shot her cat. And she was sure it was a Scientologist, and as I was. And in her closing agreement, she signed a gag agreement to end the litigation. She had to pay them some small amount of money, and the litigation went away. But in the gag agreement, it said that she could never talk about her cat being shot. Well, I didn't sign that agreement. She did. And Enid, bless her heart, has passed away. So Enid believed until her death that Scientology killed her cat. And that is when I flipped out. I went from being a free zoner to bashing the living shit out of those bastards. And that brings us up to '94. People, and I was running a desktop publishing business, so I had a scanner. I could do OCR, and people started sending me documents to put on the net. I ended up with a stack, you know, this high. And I started working my way through them, you know, and uploading them. I didn't have a website back in '93 till the end of '93, and I would post the stuff to the news group, and people would web them. And finally, somebody sent me a copy of Scientology criminal charges had been brought in Spain against Scientology for inducement to suicide, amongst a whole long litany of things. And the guy that sent me the document was a jeweler named John Caban. And we used to talk on the phone. Joe Harrington introduced me to John. And John would give me updates about what was happening, and none of it was good. And it seems that there were 3 or 4 people who had sued Scientology, and because of the stuff Scientology had done during the lawsuit, criminal charges were brought by the state. And then Scientology, hold on, I got to tie this into something Miscavige said and put it in context, that bastard. John Caban called me up and said that they had been buying off all of the complainants. On one hand, they would harass them so horrifically and make their lives impossible and screw around with everybody they knew and members of their family and maybe their pets. You know, stuff would happen. And on the other hand, they would offer a pile of money if they would drop their complaint. Finally, John Caban was the last guy. Everybody else had settled the civil part. And Miscavige, when he was talking about the resolution of the Spanish case, that when it went away, he said something like, and when the prosecution put their witnesses on the stand, Scientology worked. I was probably the only guy that understood what the hell he really meant. And now you will. What he meant was, the part of Scientology that works is the lawyers.
Wow.
All right?
Wow.
They bought off all the other complainants. They made their lives miserable, then offered them money. Lawrence described that as the carrot and the stick. They make your life miserable, then they offer you a bunch of cash to go away. And between the two, you know, it's like an offer you can't refuse. unless you think you are on a mission, perhaps from God, because that's what it takes to stand up to them.
Yes.
Because it's evil.
It is evil. Yeah.
But without truth, you have nothing. So there's nothing to lose by going after them.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
Anyway, that's what happened to the Spanish case. And that's what Miscavige meant when he said, and when the prosecution put their witnesses on the stand, Scientology worked. That's what he meant, that he bought them all off.
Incredible.
I have just one question. Why should, like, had nothing to do with Scientology and finding out over a week of what it's about, why should the average person even care about Scientology? Why should the average person care about Scientology?
If the average person were to come to an understanding of the nature of the society that he lives in that tolerates this abomination, he might start asking the right questions. See, having the right answers is important, but knowing the right questions to ask is as important as having the right answers. But, you know, you need to make people think. You need to make people think.
That's right.
And just, you know, when you see what's going on here and just how evil and awful it is, and then you think, well, this is America, isn't it? I mean, the first letter, after they sent a couple of people to my house, I think it was John Bostic and Eugene Ingram, came to my door. I didn't answer it, but they left the affidavit there, supposedly saying I'm an awful, terrible person. You shouldn't believe a word I say. They were very upset. They wanted to know where I got the Spanish criminal indictment, claiming that the Spanish government was very upset with that. I think they'd be very happy. Scientology was the one upset. And I had been posting as Pat Broker, using Pat Broker's name. That was my nick on AOL. It was Pat Broker at AOL.com, pbroker at AOL.com. And that was the nickname I used to use and to post on. But I used to work with Pat. I bought his van when he went to Flag. We were friends. He was a good man, too good a man to stand up against Miscavige.
You had some very nasty and disturbing experiences with Scientology in your home.
Well, they went to a U.S. federal judge, filed 6 inches of ex parte motions like this, repeating hypnotically, religious technology this, religious technology that, religious technology centers intellectual property, religious technology this, religious technology center that. Over and over again. It was almost like it was like trance-like, but they used the same kind of repetitive trance techniques in their filings that they give to judges. But that's a whole other topic. But anyway, they convinced the judge that I was violating their trade secrets and copyrights. And the judge said, okay, well, you know, search the house, get the papers back. And what they did was they conducted the search while the U.S. Marshals sat on the couch, one of them like this. I mean, I got pictures on my site from that. And I got the video of a lot of it. I had the president of Religious Technology Center in my house. I had Helena Coburn in the house. I had Earl C. Cooley sitting on my couch. But when he saw the video cameras come, he scuttled out the door. You know, he knew things were going to get out of hand. He had a bad feeling, I think, and thought maybe he should leave. Not quite soon enough. But
So what were they doing in your house? What was going on?
well, they were going through all. They ransacked the place. They went through everything. They searched my bedroom drawers. They went through my office. They took my computer. They took my Rolodex. I never did get the goddamn Rolodex back. You know, they just lie. They lied to the judge. But in 6 inches of ex parte filings, they never once mentioned that what I had posted was a copy of an unsealed public court record in the Central District of California. An affidavit. I posted an affidavit that contained OT 1 through 8.
What is OT?
Operating Thetan. It's also an insignia used by the Nazis for their 1st Brigade, OT.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did this all affect you with them in your house while they were there and after?
It was supposed to bowl me over and render me in shock and incapable of responding. When some years earlier, I knew that I had a problem flinching when things would happen too fast. So I took up skydiving and ended up jumping out of a plane until I lost the flinch. Until I could step out a plane door at 15,000 feet and yawn. Just walk around on the wing.
So you wanted to shock yourself out of what happened?
Well, I wanted to repeat the shock of skydiving until shocks did not
Affect you.
make me freeze.
Right.
So I didn't freeze because of it. However, I think they anticipated I might be a problem because I had a gal there I had a couple of neighbors running video, and one of them who was running for county board, a lawyer, said, "Why are they in your bathroom for so long?" And what I found out was on Sunday night I brushed my teeth, and then when I was laying in bed that night, I started hallucinating. And I recognized, and the hallucinations weren't just LSD, but I recognized had I not done LSD when I went to Woodstock back in the 60s, okay? And if I had not done LSD back then, I would have thought I was going completely crazy. But I recognized certain indisputable physical symptoms to know that it was LSD, so I didn't go crazy. But I called the police, and they have a report, but didn't open a case because they didn't know how to classify it. You know what I mean?
Way over the top, yeah.
Yeah, it was just way over the top. And I had a law firm telling me to shut up and not talk about it because it would hurt my credibility. But as soon as I got out from underneath that law firm, I went pro se in federal court long enough to file my version of what actually happened during the raid. But yeah, I need to hawk. This is see now, you guys that are in, you got a number you can call. And it's a safe number to call, and they'll do everything they can to get you out and get you help. And we don't have a lot of money because we're not the ones lying for a living. The truth doesn't pay well, but it sure feels good. And it won't kill you. All right, and this here, you see the van down there with Scientology, Cult of Confusion? These guys are taking this battle to Scientology. This is the real deal. This is how you do it. You go after them. You bring the battle to them. Or else you can sit at home and wait for them to bang on your door at 3 in the morning.